Hello friends, this is Vision Overseas. We are providing both online and offline coaching with most repeated and authentic practice material. Once you join our coaching, you will be updated with latest practice material for next quarter. If you have any question or query, you can visit our website thevisionoverseas.com, and even you can contact us on given WhatsApp number for more details. Thank you.
According to the Roman Catholic Church, individuals of the purest faith remain in a lifelike state after death. Their bodies resist decomposition for centuries. Numerous cases were found in which people have been exhumed years after their deaths and were found preserved. The Church viewed this as a measure of sanctity, and incorruptible people, whose bodies miraculously resist decay, were canonized by the Church. Incorruptibility became a component of canonization, the process of becoming sainted. This process of canonization included the prospective saint appearing in visions to people after death, performing miracles either after or during life, and incorruptibility of their dead bodies.
A recent World Bank research revealed that automation will disrupt the pattern of the traditional economic path, from productive agriculture stage to light manufacturing stage, and then to full-scale industrialization stage, and increase job losses in developing countries, particularly in India and China, and part of Africa.
In an effort to send a strong signal to the world and Israeli society that the Palestinians are for peace and appreciate the efforts of statesmen like Shimon Peres, Mr. Mohammed Abbas, the Prime Minister of Palestine, has decided to attend the funeral of Mr. Shimon Peres. Mr. Shimon Peres was buried at Mount Herzl, Israel's national cemetery, according to his own funeral plan, in the presence of large numbers of foreign dignitaries and under unprecedented security arrangement.
The pre-cyclone exercise for ensuing cyclone season was conducted at Chennai during 20 to 24 April 2016. All stakeholders, including National Disaster Management Authority, non-government organizations, NGOs, Indian Air Force, Navy, National Disaster Response Force, National Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasting, and experts from IMD, Indian Meteorological Department, were participated in the exercise.
Upper Air Laboratory, Bangalore has upgraded the pilot balloon, PB, observatories at Gangtok, Pune, and Ratnagiri into GPS-based radio-sounding radio wind observatories. Previously these PB stations were observing upper air profile of wind direction and wind speed employing optical theodolite manually. After upgradation, these stations will capable of getting upper air profile of temperature, humidity, pressure geopotential height, wind direction, and wind speed automatically to 35 km height.
A total of 5 ozone ascents were taken at Bharati Station, Indian Mission, Antarctica during April to June 2016. As the stratospheric temperatures reduced to negative 82.24 Celsius on 20th June 2016, indicating the formation of stratospheric clouds, which may lead to depletion of ozone concentration in the stratosphere. Leading scientists at Bharti Station feared that Montreal Accord has not succeeded to control emission of ozone-depleting gases in atmosphere.
This is the story of a tribal boy who was not content with the life he had. He was loved by all. But he was not happy. His father saw that something troubled him. He asked his son the reason. He said to his father that he wanted to be an archer. He wanted to be the disciple of a great teacher who taught only the sons of kings. He said to his father that he knew they belonged to hunting tribe. He did not want to be a mere hunter. He approached the teacher and asked the teacher to train him to be a mighty warrior. The great teacher rejected his plea, saying that this place belongs only to king's sons. Though he was dejected, he did not lose hope. He made a statue of the great teacher and started worshipping him. He believed if he could practice before his teacher he would learn archery. In time faith, perseverance, and courage transformed the boy, the mere tribal hunter, to a great archer. The boy became an archer of exceptional prowess, superior even to the great teacher's best student. If we are dedicated to the work we want to achieve, the results are going to be extraordinary.
All matter, whether a solid, liquid or gas, is made up of tiny particles called molecules. The molecules of one substance are different from the molecules of another substance. There is a force of attraction between the molecules. This attraction is the greatest in solids, therefore, solids are hard and cannot flow. In liquids, the force of attraction between molecules is less as compared to solids. Thus, we can say that the molecules are loosely packed. Liquids can, therefore, be easily poured or can flow. In gases, the force of attraction between the molecules is the least. Therefore, the molecules of a gas can easily flow in any direction. If we spray perfume in one corner of the room, we can smell it in another corner. This happens because of the molecules of perfume diffuse in the air and moves from one corner to another. Molecules are made of atoms. Every molecule has one or more atoms. For example, each molecule of oxygen contains 2 atoms of oxygen. This is written as O2. Similarly, the molecule of hydrogen is written as H2. When atoms of different kinds combine, compounds are formed.
Recording C. It is difficult to know how to place Montesquieu if you're the kind of person who likes to categorize: historian, political philosopher, sociologist, jurist, or, if you think the Persian letters a novel, a novelist. He was all these things. Perhaps, as some have, he could be placed among that almost extinct species, the man of letters. The books that make up the spirit of the laws have had the most influence on later thinkers, and in them, as in his equally great Considerations on the Causes of the Grandeur and Decadence of the Romans, he makes his underlying purpose clear. It is to make the random, apparently meaningless variety of events understandable. He wanted to find out what the historical truth was. His starting point, then, was this almost endless variety of morals, customs, ideas, laws and institutions, and to make some sense out of them. He believed it was not chance that ruled the world, and that beyond the chaos of accidents, there must be underlying causes that account for the apparent madness of things.
However simple or complex the chain of events in any given situation, when looked into it usually reveals a train of causal relationships. They are seen to be linked in some way. The methods of analysis aim to establish these relationships and provide a solid background for useful generalizations based on what at first appear to be separate events. The first step in this process is to collect facts and then see if any particular patterns emerge. If they do, it then becomes possible to form theories related to the facts, and this type of empirical theory forms a useful basis for analysis and prediction. However, on its own this theory is not enough. The essential second step is to test it by collecting more facts and by checking predictions against events. These new facts may mean you have to modify the theory, bearing in mind that new facts can only either disprove or support a theory. They cannot prove it to be right.
There have been many studies in America of the opinions and behavior of university lecturers and professors, and of well-known free or public thinkers who are not attached to a university or other institution, which show that those who are recognized as being more successful or productive as scholars in their field, or are at the best universities, are much more likely to have critical opinions. That is to say that they are more likely to hold liberal views in the American use of that word than those of their colleagues who are less creative or who have less of a reputation. The better a university is, as measured by the test results of its students or by the prestige of its staff, the more likely it has been that there will be student interest and a relatively left-of-center faculty.
The growth of the modern state brought with it the development of mass political parties and the emergence of professional politicians. A man whose occupation is the struggle for political power may go about it in two ways. First, a person who relies on their political activities to supply their main source of income is said to live off politics, while a person who engages in full-time political activities but who doesn't receive an income from it is said to live for politics. Now, a political system in which recruitment to positions of power is filled by those who live for politics is necessarily drawn from a property-owning elite who are not usually entrepreneurs. However, this is not to imply that such politicians will necessarily pursue policies which are wholly biased towards the interests of the class they originate from.
The spinal cord, the link between the brain and the body, is a band of nervous tissue about the thickness of your little finger that runs through the backbone. Nerve cells called motor neurons convey electric impulses that travel from the brain to the spinal cord, branching off at the appropriate point and passing to the various parts of the body. Similarly, sensory neurons transmit messages from organs and tissues via the spinal cord to the brain. But the spinal cord also functions without the brain having to intervene. It alone controls those actions called spinal reflexes that need to be carried out very fast in response to danger.
Recording A. Paper was first manufactured in Europe by the Spanish in the 12th century, although it had been imported since the 10th century. Around the year 1276, a mill was established at Fabriano in Italy. The town became a major centre for papermaking and throughout the 14th century provided most of Europe with fine quality paper, which it has continued to produce ever since. By the 15th century, paper was also being manufactured in Germany and France, and it was not long before both countries became almost completely independent of material bought overseas. With the increasing availability of paper in Europe, the production of identical printed pictures became almost inevitable.
Before farming was introduced into Scotland, people jived by hunting, fishing, and gathering wild foodstuffs. This way of life meant that they usually didn't settle permanently in one place, but were to an extent nomadic, moving about in search of a livelihood, perhaps returning to the same places at certain times of the year. It is believed that the islands of Orkney were known to these people, but so far, only a few tools have been found to verify this. This is because coastal erosion has destroyed many ancient sites, and these may have contained relics of some of these earliest pioneering colonists.
It isn't necessary to have specialized knowledge of, say, the intricacies of counterpoint, or even to be able to read music to understand it. Usually, getting the point of a piece of music, its emotional and dramatic impact is immediate or simply requires you to become more familiar with it. Of course, prolonged study of music and its composition, as in any other field, will increase your understanding, but not necessarily your enjoyment. Now, I realize that it can require a good deal of willingness on our part to risk new sensations, and there is a lot of music that will seem unfamiliar and alien to you on a first hearing.
Almost everyone has heard of the London Stock Exchange, but relatively few know anything about the London Metal and Commodity Exchanges, yet these markets have a greater influence on world economies because they set global prices for some of the essential raw materials for industry and food manufacture. The LME provides three basic services to the world's non-ferrous metal trade. First, it is a market where large or small quantities of metal of a guaranteed minimum standard can be bought and sold on specific trading days. Second, it acts as a barometer of world metal prices. And third, it is a hedging medium. That is, it can help traders get some protection from price fluctuations that occur for economic, political, or financial reasons.
On average, Iceland experiences a major volcanic event once every 5 years. Since the Middle Ages, a third of all the lava that has covered the Earth's surface has erupted in Iceland. However, according to a recent geological hypothesis, this estimate does not include submarine eruptions, which are much more extensive than those on the land surface.
Now that story's been scotched as only part of contingency planning, but it was a symptom of the dramatic turn of events in South Australia, and it flushed out other remarks from water academics and people like Tim Flannery, indicating that things were really much worse than had been foreshadowed, even earlier this year. So is Adelaide, let alone some whole regions of South Australia, in serious bother. Considering that the vast amount of its drinking water comes from the beleaguered Murray, something many of us outside the state may not have quite realized. Is their predicament something we have to face up to as a nation?
Those of you who've never heard the term Neo-Latin may be forgiven for thinking it's a new South American dance craze. If you're puzzled when I tell you it has something to do with the language of Romans, take heart. Over the years, many classes who have confessed they are not really sure what it is either. Some have assumed that they are so-called Late Latin, written at the end of the Roman Empire. Others have supposed it must have something to do with the Middle Ages. Or perhaps it's that pseudo-Latin which my 5 and 7-year-old boys seem to have gleaned from the Harry Potter books, useful for spells and curses that they zip one another with makeshift paper ash ones. No, in fact, Neo-Latin is more or less the same as the Latin that was written in the ancient world, Classical Latin. So, what's so new about it?
Only 3 Arab countries, Jordan, Egypt, and Palestine, which had signed the peace accords with Israel, have sent their guards to attend the funeral of Mr. Shimon Peres, a former president and prime minister of Israel. Dozens of foreign dignitaries, including USA President Barack Obama and Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General United Nations, are reaching in Israel to attend the swearing-in ceremony of Shimon Peres, one of the country's founding fathers and Nobel Peace Prize winner, who had re-signed the Oslo Peace Accord in 1993, along with Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin, for a lasting war between Israel and Palestine.
A slowing global economy hit by stagnating global trade and falling commodity prices needs more cooperation, greater economic integration, and stronger partnerships to return to higher rates of inclusive, sustainable growth to eliminate extreme poverty.
Autophagy is a cellular process which allows orderly degradation and recycling of dysfunctional cellular components. In 1963, Belgian biochemist Christian de Duve coined the term autophagy, which is derived from Greek word autophagus, means self-sustaining. Based on the discovery of autophagy-related genes in yeast in the 1990s, Japanese researcher Yoshinori Osumi has developed regulation of autophagy, which enable him to win 2016 Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2016. By rapidly providing fuel to building blocks of cell autophagy, can renew cellular components and stem starvation and other types of stress. Autophagy can ward off defeated intracellular viruses and bacteria during infection. As a potent anti-aging agent, autophagy eliminates damaged proteins. Embryo development and cell differentiation during pregnancy are contributed to autophagy, while mutations in autophagy genes can cause communicable disease. Disruption of the autophagy process of the cell can lead to Parkinson's disease, type 2 diabetes, and other geriatric diseases and cancer.
UNFPA, United Nation Family Planning Association, has ordered the religious bodies in Africa to help in spreading awareness to spread the menace of female genital mutilations among African population. One of the root cause of prevailing this inhuman, barbaric, female genital mutilation practices among African tribes is cultural and religious wedding ceremony of young and adolescent girls, which are prohibited and eulogized by religious bodies.
During perspiration process, water from trees goes up in the air to form a cloud, while during oxidation process, water from oceans, rivers, lakes, and various water body goes up in the air to form a cloud. Condensed clouds bring forth participation on Earth. Rainwater goes to the ocean, river, lakes, and various water bodies through surface runoff, while underground runoff rainwater recharge aquarium, though capillary action trees draw underground water. Hydrological cycle ensures that total volume of water remains same in the system.
Being attentive in traffic is important. This we must teach to every child, to be safe, if at all they go out without an adult help. People who follow legitimate traffic rules are always safe and keep others safe too. We need to learn all the traffic signs. We can identify some of them easily. Mandatory signs are signs which ensure difficulty and a free flow of traffic. They are marked in a red circle. The violation of these signs is a legal offense. Cautionary signs are signs which provide warnings of certain menacing conditions either on or near the road. They are marked with red triangles. Informatory signs are signs which provide useful information about frontier and distance, geographical and historical data, and other places along the road.
When human beings started growing food, learned to make biscuits by using thin branches of trees. Also learned to cook food, so they needed utensils. The earliest pots were made up by plastering clay around the baskets. Later, they began to be made without using the basket. They were hardened or baked by heating them on the fire. Afterward, they used the potter's wheel to make beautiful northern pots. The invention of the wheel helped them in many other ways. They also learned the art of pursuing. First, they made baskets and mats. Then, cotton and frozen threads. Finally, they made cloth with the threads.
Since 1988, the World AIDS Day is held on December 1st every year. It is an international day to raise awareness about HIV and AIDS around the world. On this day, besides raising awareness of the AIDS pandemic caused by the spread of HIV infection, memorials are held to honor persons who have died from HIV/AIDS. Government and health officials also observe the event, often with speeches or forums on the AIDS topics. Since 1995, the President of the United States has made an official proclamation on World AIDS Day. Governments of other nations have followed suit and issued similar announcements. Children constitute the greatest asset of a nation. A nation prospers or progresses to the extent it is able to develop the hidden potential lying untapped in her children. In a country like India, where children constitute a good percentage of the population, we need to give much more attention to their all-round development. A day like Children's Day is a right step in this direction. The day invites all of us to give children their due love, affection and opportunities for development.
The pilot of the huge B-52 bomber plane pushes a button. From under the plane's right wing, the black, sharp-nosed X-15 drops free. It is 11½ kilometers above the Earth. Pilot Scott Crossfield is in the X-15's only seat. When he is clear of the B-52, he starts the X-15's rocket engine. And so begins the first powered flight of the experimental plane designed to take man to the edge of space.
The X-15 flies high over the sandy wasteland of California's Mojave Desert. Up, up it flies. After 3 minutes, its fuel has burned up. It is flying about 2,000 kilometers an hour. Scott Crossfield's voice tightens. His breathing becomes harder as the plane pushes against the atmosphere. At that speed, the pressure is 3 times the force of gravity.
Delegates to the American Continental Congress approved and signed a Declaration of Independence on July 4, 1776. The new country, called the United States of America, was at war with Britain. Yet not everyone in the former colonies agreed on the decision. No one knows for sure how many Americans remained loyal to Great Britain. The Massachusetts political leader, John Adams, thought about 33% of the colonists supported independence, 33% supported Britain, and 33% supported neither side. Most history experts today think that about 20% of the colonists supported Britain. They say the others were neutral, or supported whichever side seemed to be winning.
An estimated 9 million people rock climb in the United States. Millions more take part in the activity around the world. Some do it just for personal satisfaction. Others compete. Rock climbing can be dangerous, but there are many methods and protective devices that can increase a climber's safety. Climbing takes strength, control, and good balance. Climbers have to pull themselves straight up the face of very high rocks or walls, so they have to be strong enough to carry their own weight. And climbers sometimes have to hold on to rocks by only their fingers or toes.
There are several kinds of rock climbing. Traditional rock climbing is done outside. Climbers wear ropes and attach devices to the rocks as they climb many hundreds of meters up. They also connect their ropes to the devices. If a climber slips, a rope can stop him from falling.
Researchers at the University of California claim to have discovered that people who eat chocolate regularly tend to be lighter than those who rarely eat it. The findings may seem surprising in that chocolate has a great many calories, and in general, the more calories people consume, the more likely they are to put on weight. The results studies emphasize that is more the regularity with which people eat chocolate that is significant rather than the amount they consume. Whether they eat little or a lot seems to make no difference, whereas eating it frequently appears to reduce weight more than only having it occasionally.
So far in our discussion of chemical reactions, we have assumed that these reactions only go in one direction, the forward direction, from left to right as we read it in an equation. That's why our arrow points from left to right. Reactants react together to make products. However, this is not exactly how things occur in nature. In fact, practically every chemical reaction is reversible, meaning the products can also react together to reform the reactants that they were made of. So instead of writing that single arrow facing from left to right, a more appropriate symbol would be a double arrow, one going from left to right and one going from right to left. Reactants are continuously reacting to form products, but at the same time, as those products are formed, they remake the reactants. They're both going simultaneously, forming each other. This is what we would call a state of equilibrium.
Newspapers Canada has released a new fact sheet providing an overview of the top-line results for Canadian adults age 18-34 who embrace technology to access newspaper content while still reading in print. 9 out of 10, 87%, of these young adults read newspaper content in print, on their desktop, laptop, on their phone or via their tablet. Phone is their primary reading platform to match their on-the-go lifestyle. Newspapers Canada continues to research newspaper readership across different platforms and by time of day. The most recent research was conducted in January 2016 and confirms the continued strength of newspaper readership across all demographics, including young adults and millennials. Since then, Ottawa has been trying to deport him as a danger to Canada. Jabala, a father of 6 who had arrived in Canada in 1996, spent years in prison, before being released under strict bail conditions. In support of its arguments, Canada's spy service claimed Jabala, after his arrival in Canada, disseminated terrorist propaganda, kept contacts with the Al-Jihad leadership and members abroad, and had contacts with several Islamic extremists in this country. Ottawa also relied on an Interpol red notice regarding outstanding charges in Egypt against Jabala for being a member of a terrorist organization, and maintained his travel pattern in the Middle East before coming to Canada was consistent with that of a Mujahid extremist. Hansen rejected all those assertions. It cannot be reasonably inferred from his presence in Afghanistan at some unidentified time for some unknown duration and his presence in Yemen that he fought in Afghanistan or trained in Yemen or in any way engaged in the activities of a Mujahid extremist, the judge wrote. She also said the existence of charges in Egypt contained in the Interpol notice was in no way proof he had actually done anything.
Every year, foreign governments and other overseas entities spend about $500 million trying to influence American policy, according to the Project on Government Oversight. The Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, enables researchers to track their spending and sway. The federal law was adopted in 1938 when Congress was worried about Nazi propaganda in the United States. It was updated in 1966 to cover activities more broadly political. Today under FARA, which is run by the U.S. Department of Justice, Lobbyists and other organizations are required to regularly declare their relationships with foreign principals, their meetings, payments, as well as the informational materials they use to influence policymakers, such as presentations, email correspondence, even draft legislation. Much of the documentation is available on the FARA website, though there are holes in both the legislation and implementation.
The mid-20th century Great Migration of African Americans from the South to the urban North represents one of the largest internal migrations in history. That pattern in some ways is being reversed. The return migration proceeded beneath the radar of scholars until the late 1990s and 2000s, when northeastern and midwestern cities such as New York, Philadelphia, Detroit, and Chicago, prime destinations during the Great Migration, endured extreme population loss as the reverse migration to the south intensified. From 2000 to 2010, the black population increased most in the suburbs of four southern cities: Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Dallas, and Houston, popular destinations for America's growing black middle class, Frey 2015. As part of these trends, researchers are looking at dynamics relating to the emergence of the middle-class black suburban enclave. Entrepreneurs and technology startups face the challenge of developing their technology next to the development of customers. A relevant topic regarding this problem are the commercial capabilities and orientations of the new technology ventures. Analysis of 68 technology startups and spin-offs show the beneficial influence of having commercial capabilities within the founding team on the business performance. This benefit is even higher when the startups are focused on their competitors. How the acquired market information regarding the customer or competitor is processed within the startup team affects the business performance as well. This shows that possessing commercial capabilities as startup founders is crucial for startup success and survival, where these capabilities enable the organization to process competitor information correctly.
Mortars with crushed brick particles were used for construction of historic buildings. These ancient masonry structures proved to be more durable, especially in seismic regions. The purpose of this work was to analyze the masonry bed joints subjected to shear loading. In particular, the attention was paid to crack localization, when the joint is reinforced by crushed brick particles of different quality. A 2D nonlinear finite element analysis utilizing an anisotropic damage model was used for the analysis, and the calculations were performed using the OFM software. The results indicate that the crushed brick particles of lower quality than the surrounding matrix can contribute to a bigger ductility of the joints and suppress the localization of damage into a single major crack.